Welcome to a very interesting day for the Pac-12. We were here today originally to talk about media days, but instead, gang, bye-bye Buffs. So it turns out, as you guys probably know, for those who haven't, right before Pac-12 media days, Pac-12 got a new executive board, and then Colorado said that their goal was to remain in the Pac-12. They committed to the Pac-12 and they defected to the Big 12. So bye-bye Buffs. We are expecting tomorrow that the University of Colorado will announce its invitation to join the Big 12. Guys, initial thoughts here on the big shenanigan.
I just don't know how the Pac-12 will ever be able to recuperate from losing the powerhouse that was Colorado. I hope they can fill Colorado's shoes.
Can they find another 1-11 team? And by the way, welcome to our special guest picker tonight, Connor Johnson, who was here today to help us break down media days. But we have drafted to enjoy this shenanigan with us tonight.
Yeah, I can throw all my proverbial notes out the window, I guess. Initial thought. Although Colorado, when they came to the Pac-12, hasn't been anything with Prime and those eyeballs, certainly there was some leverage there with the media, with the TV rights deal. We'll see, but it's not looking good for the Pac right now. A lot of teams taking meetings and hedging bets. Sad to see them go. Boulder's a great travel destination. Big 12 is easier football, so I guess they want to go win more games.
So my take is, and we can get into this more as we get into talk about it more in detail, right? But it seems to me that you either gotta stop the bleeding and add schools right now, and George has to get his stuff together and put something on the table. And it's got to be palatable for the people that matter. And it's got to get done now, because now that one person has left in the musical chairs game, the rest of the schools that are worried about where their chair sits are going to be a lot more worried about that. On the other hand, I also think it's hilarious that you have it's just funny to me that you have a lot of people that are, kind of seeking the demise of the Pac-12, so to speak. And, their whole thing this whole time has been sort of the Pac sucks, research money doesn't matter, academics doesn't matter. The only thing that matters for athletic conferences is good football and basketball. And then those same people are just absolutely stoked that they have a team defecting from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 that's won 27 of their last 103 conference games in the conference. So it's like on the one hand, it's a huge negative perception thing for the Pac-12, obviously. And they do obviously have to get their stuff together immediately, in my opinion, or risk having losing everything. But on the other hand, I think if they do get their things together, and if they do work it out, then the loss of Colorado overall as a single school is not a big deal. It's more like the straw that broke the camel's back, potentially. But it's a straw. It's a straw. It's not a brick.
Let's not forget it all.
I think you're right, Chris.
You have a USC and USC leaving with UCLA. That was the blow. Now they're weakened, and for whatever reason, Colorado, for whatever reason, decides they want to leave in the middle of all this. I'm wondering again why they chose to do it this fashion this time. This is what's weird.
Well, Chris, I think you're right. Real quick, I think Chris is right on that, because the real question is, will the hit to the perception trigger more problems going on? Because the truth is, we just put this up here, some of you guys have seen us. I think we've looked at it on the show before. When you look at the actual performance on the field, they have been abysmal. And I mean, everybody, you guys all know, we're all excited for Coach Prime. We think he's going to bring a lot of great things to the team, but they've just been abysmal. And so the question is, if you think about, like, you know, could they be replaced? They could be replaced with better football, but the Pac-12 has absolutely got to step up and they've got to do something. And we've said for months that the key is they have to do something, and they haven't.
Yeah, and I think,
sorry,
Big 12 Twitter, and most people think that it's, if this is going to shake things up, the four corners are next. And I might be biased, but personally, if you think about Oregon State and Wazoo, but I'll talk about why Oregon State are the two that are the most scared of potential falling and being Mountain West 2.0. You could look at Oregon State deciding to make the call to the Big 12 now, and that would probably shake things up further. I don't know if that would kill the Pac, but just to get ahead of it, as like a just in case scenario, go ahead and ask in, kind of not behind the rest's back, but you have to start looking out for yourself. If you're Oregon State, and the reason why I say Oregon State, not Wazoo, is just, you have Portland, the media market, you have more of an investment into sports, and they get you in that Pacific time zone. I mean, I know Wazoo does too, but just as far as BY's goals, culturally, I mean, the fit is there. So I think Oregon State has to be smart here in playing both sides. I think the four corners have flirted a little already. And Utah, I think, is going to be the key to hold everybody together. I think if the Utah AD and president could kind of reach out, they're like the perfect mix of academics and football, and could kind of tell everybody, or maybe reassure their AD, their president, that we all should stick together.
It's the ultimate game of the prisoner's dilemma, right? Like,
well, and I think one of the issues too is we got today word from the Big Ten. Tony Petitti, commissioner of the Big Ten, very clearly said the focus of the Big Ten is on integrating USC and UCLA, is not on further expansion. So, I think if you have that, you maintain that California core, a lot of it is really going to be, and folks in the Pac are going to pull their hair out to hear me say this, I think a lot of it's on Michael Crow, who is the most influential person in the state of Arizona for higher ed. And the question is, will Michael Crow double down, or will they consider a move as well? And again, if they just lose Colorado, it's really to the conference. It's not, Colorado's a wonderful school. We love. I've always loved having them in the conference. But I think that I think that they very much will not really be missed. But if they start to lose a lot of teams and have to then replace a huge swath, it would certainly be more impactful.
Well, I mean, I think if
I'm looking ahead, what do you guys think? What be?
Okay, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, we're having bad storm right now. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, the question would be, would they lose more school? Would they lose more than the original Pac-10? Would they keep that core of the what's left of the 8 of the 10, and would they take action quickly? Because one of the things that, and we said from the get-go that we thought they needed to expand. And I think that not expanding, not taking firm action has cost them. What do you guys think they do? What do you guys think they should do next? Not what they will do next.
What they should do, I think they should call Tulane, SMU, San Diego State. I would throw Memphis in there. Like anyone that has like a semi-pulse. It's about survival now, right? It's not about like, oh, who do we like? It's like, who is margin, like even like, people can stick their nose up or whatever, but in terms of like, if you want to stay together, you bring in who from that group you can. Colorado State. I don't know who else is on that list, but you call all of them and you do what you can to backfill. And you do actually, like, I think you do what the Big 12 did, right? Like the Big 12, like what half the teams are different than what they were 10 or 15 years ago. And now they're still a conference. Like I think you just load it, and as long as you can stay a automatic bid conference by doing that, then you do what you can to survive, and you do that as quickly as you can before people go to different tables in the lunchroom.
Yeah, I think,
All right. Well, why don't? Sorry, go ahead, Connor.
Well, I was just saying you nailed it with those first three. I think those Tulane, SMU, SDSU stand above the rest. So if you're just getting back to 12, those three, and then that's less dilutive than adding 5 and then forcing in CSU replacing the Denver market. I guess there's something there now.
And say what you want about Tulane, but Tulane is better academics and better football and better overall athletics than Colorado.
Yeah, and
that's not a rip on Colorado.
Louisiana probably deserves 2 Power 5 teams too, right? Just with the wealth of talent they have there, and it's in New Orleans, so we're talking New Orleans, Dallas, San Diego. Those are 3 great markets to get into.
All right, guys. Well, hey, we're gonna talk a little bit more about this, but why don't we throw it open for some calls? If you guys want to, particularly Pac fans, you want to join the show, talk about what you think your team should do, what you think the conference should do. We would love to hear from you guys. Let me put the link in the chat really quick.
While we're waiting on callers, just to be the voice of Oregon State for a second, and I think I saw it in the chat a little bit, but I think Oregon State is a sneaky team to watch if the Big 12 is trying to tear at the Pac-12 even more, just to get into that 4th time window. Culturally is a good fit, and I know people like to scoff at the idea of Oregon State Wazoo, but at least Oregon State carries the.
We don't scoff at them.
We have investment in football, so it's time. I think perhaps, whereas I'm the biggest back the pack guy, but I think Oregon State needs to start just looking out for themselves, or at least being very wary, because I think one more school might spell the end. Just be a trickle down of a bunch of schools wanting to leave.
All right, we've got Larry Pilgrim joining us from Utah. Well, he's actually from Florida, but devout Utah fan. Larry, what are your thoughts today on a wild day for the Pac-12?
Oh, is this an adult or children's show? Because we just got bitch slapped. Oh,
I think certainly in media perception and in presidential inaction.
Yeah. So my thoughts are the same as you guys. Kudos to the Big 12 for getting Colorado. Good luck to Colorado. They're doing what they feel is best for them. I'm not going to say I blame them, but I mean, if that's where they feel like they fit, see ya. I think the 9 teams, presidents, they better get together. Like Chris said, put a plug in the hole and just get together and say, let's get this done, George. We're done. We're not going to sit here and scrap over. I don't know what the deal is. Just get it done, sign the deal, add the teams, be done with it. Because if this keeps going on, it's just, it's not good. And so I don't want to go to the Big 12.
I agree, Larry.
I don't respect them. Yeah. Am I here?
Who would you add?
Larry.
Yep. Who would you add if you were the Pac-12?
I would definitely add SMU. I definitely San Diego State. And then I don't know contractually what's going on with whoever they're working with. I think they should be on the phone with them and which they've probably got to be. I would go with SMU and San Diego State and see what else we can get. Like you just said, Tulane's a good one.
And Tulane and SMU would be really good travel partners as well, because one of the wonderful things that the Pac has is the schools are in very convenient travel pairings for scheduling of Olympic sports. And if you had SMU and Tulane, that would fit well in a travel pair.
And then SDSU and Utah could go back to their old Mountain West rivalry days. So that would work as well.
That'd be really cool. John Tile. John, thank you for the super chat. He says call Fresno, San Diego, Rice, SMU, Tulane, Boise State. I think those are all great. All great spots. You guys know I've said since last. You guys probably remember this in the show last June. I said that they should add Fresno because I think that extra anchor in the state of California would be big. The Pac has not been interested in it, but I agree,
well,
John. I agree with you on that list.
Now might finally be the time to put pressure on Cal and Stanford to drop the academic standard. I mean, if we're talking life support for the Pac, it might be time to get over that and take a bullet. And I mean, because Cal and Stanford could be looking at Mountain West 2.0 anyways, or dropping their football or independent. So at this point,
but in all
personally go Boise over
in all
Fresno
fairness,
for dropping academic standards.
But in all fairness, part of the thing is not necessarily dropping academic standards, but seeing who's aspirational. One of the things about Boise is Boise's had some, for example, we look at research funding. Boise's research funding looks like a hockey stick. They're doing like they started from a very, very low base, but they've actually we've talked about this a lot. Just why I thought the Big 12 should have added them forever ago. Boise's doing a lot of good stuff. So, who knows?
Yeah,
I think you're right. You're right, Conrad.
We've shown that.
Well, and also, by the way,
academics can improve.
Yeah, in 1964, they did not want to add Oregon and Oregon State, who I don't even think you guys had admission standards at the time.
No,
which was
we
an
still
issue
don't.
for them. You still okay? No, back then I think it was like you just show up. You just show up.
They gave me my diploma the day that I got in. They were like, "Here you go. You're gonna get this."
Here you go.
We'll
At the student union, you just picked it up.
Yeah, that's how.
Hey guys, let's just throw in. We got another caller. Larry, we're leaving you in. We're bringing in Alex Rea. Alex from Cal.
Pac is in here.
We've got a Cal rep. Alex, what are your thoughts today on probably a wild day?
I've been waiting for this for the last year. I want the end game to start. I thought that day when they announced the LA schools were gone, I thought, because you know how this thing works, it's in a matter of hours how everything can just fall down. Remember a dozen years ago, we thought the Big 12 was done. And literally at the 11th hour, that got shelved, and that was that. So I'm excited only because can we finally and also I don't think there's ever going to be a deal. I just don't. I just don't think that. Yeah, forget
it feels like
a deal around because when now that Colorado's gone, now you have to redo whatever you were dealing around, and then now it's we have to invite other schools. So then so it's literally like you're trying to do a deal on quicksand. So I don't think there's going to be a deal at this point. Forget it. Like a deal with who now? And we have a while to talk about this. I know you mentioned Cal and Stanford, and we have standards. We'll take down the conference. We'll just kill this whole thing over certain. Like I say, we'd rather take down the Pac-12 rather than play Fresno. I'll tell you that right now. We'll put an end to things rather than. We had one game in the 90s down there, and
playing football.
And the feedback from the fans was so bad. We're never playing in Fresno again. But could you imagine the Stanford Cardinal actually marching into Fresno to play a game?
Yeah.
So, and I know and also take a
it
look
would,
at
it would be just fan wise, it would be just like if Fresno played at Stanford because there's no Stanford people.
Well, no, I was going to say that the Stanford actually probably get outnumbered if the Red Wave rolls into Palo Alto. There'd be more Bulldog fans than there would be Cardinal fans.
Twice as many.
That's the biggest problem with all of this. With the Pac-12 getting a number is the fan support. It's just, and I hate to say it out loud, but we're all thinking it. Like the SEC, the fanatics. If you grow up in that, that's like it's just different. and Cal and Stanford bring that down, but so do the Arizona schools not showing out. I mean, the P&W really holds up the conference a lot
Brock
as far as
Heward
fan support
mentioned-
goes. And I think that
Yeah.
the media landscape just looked at like the numbers and were bullish on giving us, you know,
Well, even
woulda,
this
coulda,
Brock-
should have taken that 31 mil.
Yeah, and Brock Heward got dragged for this because last week he was basically saying fan support across the conference pretty much sucks. And he knows this firsthand because Washington last year had a huge turnaround. And if not for a bad game in Tampa, they could have been playing for everything. They won 11 games. Big, they're I mean, Caleb DeBoer is a good coach. Do you know how many people showed up for their spring showcase in Seattle?
Yeah, nobody.
Like 500 people.
The
And
Beaver
Boulder-
game was a really poor show
Yeah.
out too. Maybe you could have taken them out of the P&W.
Yeah, so even for
I think the pro sports hurt, but also just like football is instilled in your identity at an early age. College football in the South, in Texas, and I'm a transplant from the South, putting all my love into my alumni now. My alumnus. See, they just handed out the diplomas, and ultimately, it's going to hurt. But Oregon State culturally, the fans doing all right. I just hope, selfishly now, and I have to think selfishly, that Oregon State finds a home.
No, I mean, we do joke about the SEC and like it just means more kind of stuff, but I mean, it does for most of
real
those
quick.
schools.
Before that goes away, I want to give a thank you.
You're cutting out, Tony. I think.
Yep.
I'm cutting out. Sorry. Am I better? Am I back? Okay. Hey, we want to give a quick thanks to Super Chat from Matt Ritz. They asked what happens with the Pac-12 Network. The Pac-12 Network, we will see what happens with it with the media deal. Supposedly, they say it will not continue in its current form, but we'll see after the media deal. Next question.
They need to package that in. That's like one of our only assets, is having that studio. There's a video on YouTube if anybody's interested that does the tour of their old studio. I mean, it's state of the art. It's like professional level.
Really good.
Like, so that needs to be an asset. Get whatever money you can from that. Use that as leverage for the streamers. Like, maybe CU wasn't bought in, and perhaps Prime really did have a say, or the ear at least of the president or his AD, definitely. But just getting the money from the streamer and going all in on that should have been the play from the start. I mean, you could have gotten probably 35 plus all in for Apple, just give them everything. And not to say that ship's sailed, but we're not going to get as much money without Colorado, just because of the figures that come in, the numbers of eyeballs that Prime brings in.
And a question here, a really good one for you guys from Hero75. Does anyone know what the photo with Ohio State mascot and Oregon Duck was about? So they haven't said what it was today. My belief, and guys, tell me your thoughts on this, is that it's just a rescheduling of the 2020 game, because in 2020 Ohio State was supposed to go to Oregon, and that game was canceled for COVID, but was pending rescheduling. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. That's got to be what it is, because I don't think that Brutus is leaking realignment news. But
no,
my Ohio State friend did remind me that Ohio State during COVID jumped the gun on announcing the return to playing football of the Big Ten before the conference was ready to actually say it. So maybe Ohio State just does what they want, and the rest of the conference, has to just kind of go with it. So maybe Brutus is the ultimate source of realignment news, but I kind of doubt it.
Or the Stanford Tree, who we had a Stanford Tree with us last week, has alleged that he believes Ohio State might be replacing Colorado in the Pac-12. So yeah, let's
Notre
go.
Dame as well.
Yeah, exactly. Bring Notre Dame as well. I love the Stanford Tree.
Like Serge, Chris was saying, I mean, initially I didn't look into it at all. And then after today's news, I'm like, if ESPN's driving all of this behind the scenes, they wanted Prime for those eyeballs, and they don't want to pay for 5 conferences, then it would make sense that they're telling the Big Ten to make the move. And now the Big Ten doesn't have to feel bad since Colorado made the first move, which is why I'm saying Oregon State, I think, needs to start thinking about your backup plan. I think they already have been, but Oregon and Washington got more serious today to the Big Ten because the narrative for a while was the Big Ten didn't want to destroy the Pac-12, and now they can blame that on Colorado somewhat. I mean, they did it ultimately with USC, UCLA. So again, I mean, whereas I was fairly confident before, it all hinged on not just one team leaving the pack, and we joke that they're so bad, but it doesn't take a genie to see that the program's completely flipped on its head and it's getting all the eyeballs. I mean, if you go to Pac-12 Network's channel for the interviews from Media Day, Colorado has 5 times the amount of views as the next highest Pac-12 program. So I think if you're media and you're looking at that, that's why ESPN wanted them on board, and we'll give them full share at the pro rata cost.
And we had another question here, real quick. We had a real quick question from Zach Whitley asking if we think the Pac-12 should add Fresno, Boise State, or Memphis. So I'll tell you, Zach, personally, I recommended on July 2nd, I think a year ago, that the Pac-12 should add Fresno. Memphis, I think, is awesome. I think Memphis would be great for the Pac-12. I think it's a little further than they want to go, but if they added Memphis, it would be fantastic. 12, but great for the Pac-12 too. Whenever we have these shows, there's always a storm. Sorry about that, guys.
I
think they'd be great.
I have a question for you guys.
I don't know if they will. I don't think they will, but I think I wouldn't have a problem with it, which is what I said.
Want to join is the question. Who wants to come in now?
Anybody
Anyone
who's
from the non-Power 5 that can make more money.
Autonomous 5 being the key word there, and having that auto bid.
Yeah, we'll have schools.
Because if you look at it, Tony likes to point out the university perspective. These still, 5 autonomous conferences have voting rights and have a different status in the NCAA hierarchy as a whole.
And I think the other thing too is, remember, this, when the Big 12 lost Texas and Oklahoma, they lost in Nebraska and Missouri, they lost 6 of their most important brands, versus the Pac-12 they lost their 2, but then they just lost their worst brand too. That'd be like if the Big 12 lost Iowa State. They'd be fine.
Worse, but also I think it's important to recognize that this was never a Pac-12 school. I mean, I know I sound like I'm coping a little bit there, but Colorado is only 10 years in the Pac. So you could recover from it. I think it makes the other schools nervous. And I think a school like Oregon State, to go back to it, would get ahead of the Four Corner schools in asking for an invite.
Now, we understand, tomorrow Oregon is approving a contract extension for Dan Lanning. So, Oregon is certainly bought in. We've been told again today that the Big Ten is not looking at further expansion. So, I mean, I guess the real question, guys, is, are we overreacting to this or not?
It depends on where you're looking at it from in the context. But no, I think that this really was a crucial blow that, to me, brings it closer to 50-50 on survival as the 9 that we are.
As you
but
said,
also,
it's not
if
a
you're
huge
looking at
loss,
it from
but we didn't expect them to light the fuse, that is. We thought other schools would leave. We didn't expect them to leave. At least I think. So that's what's surprising.
I don't trust the Big Ten as far as I can look them in the eye and shake their hands.
It's fair. It's
You
fair.
don't think we should have you should have an alliance with them, something like that?
No.
Yeah, I mean, and Ryan Winter pointed out, like, perhaps the move is, Stanford to the Big Ten, and then Cal sticks around because they are California, and add some schools. Oregon is not wanted, maybe not Washington. And so at some point, like, I wonder again if Cal is going to just bite the bullet and just like call up your Mark and do this merger that doesn't make sense, but none of this makes sense. Because then if we're at, 10 schools, I guess Colorado's already going. Stanford and Cal maybe to the Big Ten, that would make a Big 12 merger work. But like this ACC merger never got legs, which I think would have worked for football only. I think it's so up in the air with what can happen, and it can go a million different ways in the next 48 hours. And I wonder, I'd like to be a fly in the room with the presidents on the phone tonight. I think Oregon State scheduled that emergency board of regents meeting yesterday. Oregon, Arizona did today. So the conversations are happening right now, and I think the Big 12 is also talking about expansion. And like before, it was easy to brush off all this Big 12 trollness, but now it's a real threat.
What do you guys think about? Connor, you mentioned the issue of Stanford. I mean, we said, the day on this channel here with Mark, the day that USC and UCLA announced they were going to the Big 12 or the Big 10, that we expected the Big 10 would probably add Stanford in the process. And, I personally remain surprised that they haven't. But I think that's where
threw them out as the real threat.
There's a lot of advantage in replacing them with Fresno.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, it's up to Cal to bite the bullet to let in the CSU schools, which they're already considering with San Diego State. But like if you're the Pac-12, you just tell Cal, like, stop playing football or get along, like hop on the train, because we're gonna leave with or without you. You're gonna get left out of all this. Like, and Cal recently has maybe shown an uptick towards investing in athletics with what they're doing with their basketball program and adding Mark Madsen, the coach. So like they're maybe starting to get the picture that, like, sure, academics are going to make more money and these schools are tied in all the ways, but like athletically, Cal is not keeping up, and we will bring them along with us because they are the ivory tower in the conference. They bring so much more to the table, but you have to put pressure on them to either add from Mountain West or I'm glad that there wasn't their president on the committee last. I'm glad that they're off the chair of the committee.
Sorry, Tony, give your serious answer and then I'll give my joke answer.
So he is leading the PAC's executive committee at the end of August. I think he should be. I think that. So you guys, I'll be honest. I think they need to replace the commissioner and the executive committee. I said that today. In all honesty, that he seems like a good guy. I realized he was doing what the presidents wanted. I think that Washington State, and Stanford, who ran this process, need to be off the executive committee. And I think they need a new commissioner, whether it's Gloria Navarez, whether it's whoever. I don't,
Buddy,
whoever
the ironic part there.
Sorry.
Sorry for interrupting. Real quick, the ironic part there is how good of a hire. I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But like, if you look at Karen, Big 12 Karen with Endeavor was second in the running to get commissioner. Like, what would have played out differently if we would have had?
Would have played out a lot differently. A lot differently.
Kliavkov is like a neurotic puzzle solver, but he's not a PR. He's not a front-facing person to represent the company. And I think he's being pushed around by the presidents, or he's being torn in this place of like Cal and Stanford are like, no academics, we don't want to add these people. And then there's in like Oregon is afraid to have people. And then he's torn from like the media side where Apple's just like, give us all of this. So he's like playing both sides and he's being bullied. Perhaps, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but this just made the situation that much harder.
Real quick, thank you again, Todd, for the other super chat. I love it. The take ACC take us. T-Mac, friend of the show, actually a great point here. Actually, you're right, T-Mac. This is who they need. Hire Mike Oresco. He'll have a media deal by Friday and expand to 16 by Monday. Actually, that knowing Mike Oresco, that's probably true. I think he's pretty great. Also, Gixxer Squid, good friend of the show. Oh, thank you. We appreciate that. And yeah, we love the feedback from everybody. You know, we know it's a tough night for a lot of fans because there's uncertainty. It's the same uncertainty that we had last year on June 30th. You know, the Big 12 felt this uncertainty many times. The ACC felt it during their own media days. So, you know, uncertainty is not fun, but you know, we're here to chat about it. And Gixxer Squid, we're glad to have you guys.
We're gonna find the answers, sort through all the bull, and we will buy the Pac-12 conference as a voice of college football network.
Well, yeah. So Connor, kind of along those lines, right? Like you're saying things that Cal could do, and I think you just signed the deal for whatever it is now, like media wise, and then whatever the difference is, you just hit up Jaylen Brown, who signed that record contract with the Celtics, and you just go get some money from your alums and make up the difference there.
We'll just buy up the conference assets. Yeah, why not?
With that note, for real, like you wonder which alums behind the scenes, specifically thinking of Phil Knight, are, and he's a fan of regionality. His wife went to Oregon State, so he's a proponent to like keep us together. I'm not saying we're going to get an invite to the Big Ten. That'd be so cool. Imagine the Bees go to the playoffs next year, and the Big Ten's like, yeah, we could just add Oregon State, Washington, Stanford. But no, wishful thinking. But seriously, there are alums behind the scenes that are maybe making moves. It's just so hard to predict, as is everything with this.
Yeah. So Tony,
all right,
whatever your name is, Walsh, whatever your name is. Yeah, I didn't think anyone was leaving for the Big 12 because I've been staying quiet for a while here. Anyone doing victory laps over in the Big 12 world, see, this is the bad thing. The big picture is college football is going to be screwed in all of this. Anyone in the SEC or the Big 10 hand-wringing right now and laughing, this is not good for the sport. This is not good for the health of the sport in any way, shape, or form. So the idea that, you know, hey, you said this was going to stay together. Hey, I never said I knew for a fact it was going to stay together. Go ahead and show me where I said it was for a fact that the Pac-12 wouldn't lose people. Okay, because I didn't say that. I said it was very unlikely. I also said, why would they leave for the Big 12? Because you guys are adding some G5 schools, and all of a sudden you think you'd be on par with the SEC and the Big 10. That's not the case. So I'm really sad this is happening. You know, the Pac-12 is a storied history, and there now is a chance it is wobbly. And the funny part is this being caused by, it's almost like a run on Wall Street. You know, that's what I'm afraid of. Some irrational moves that someone might make emotionally right now, worried about the future, is what the danger really is. Join the Big 12. What really, I mean, you look at the marquee names in the Big 12, you look at the marquee names in the Pac-12, you know, Washington, Oregon, Utah. These programs, who's better, you know, once OU leaves and Texas leaves, who's going to be left in the Big 12 that's really going, yeah, look at our great conference. I'm sorry, I'll call it how it is. You know, it's not like the Big 12 all of a sudden elevated above the Pac-12 all of a sudden. It's just a TV deal, and I think it's been mismanaged from the beginning, and that's where it starts, that's where it ends. That's where this conference really got messed up for over a decade now. And the mismanagement of this conference is why it's falling. Not because the programs or the colleges in this conference are already less than anything in the Big 12. Let's not fool ourselves. That's just a bit stupid to even go that road. So, yeah, Tony, I hope that answered your question.
And Michael Wall, Tim, that was perfect.
Tim's nailed it in the past.
Real quick, Michael Wall. Michael, thank you for the super chat.
Tony Wall, W. Yeah, you still are an idiot. But okay, go ahead. Sorry, Tony.
Real quick on this point. Just
Thanks,
because Tim recently nailed it on one of these podcasts, maybe a couple weeks back, with like the more we consolidate into this like P2, or the more that we equals the more that we're pushing out a lot of the smaller schools that like fans watch all the games. But like if we're gonna push out Oregon State, Washington State, I've heard Boston College, like random like schools, you're just pushing out those fans that is actually going to bring less media value to these big companies. So all these moves are made on short-term gain and greed, and destroying what at the fabric, like the fans that make fun of me on Twitter for Back to the Pack and Oregon State, like don't realize that it's going to happen to them, that like all these little moves are just putting Band-Aids on to make Iowa State fans feel better when like they're not in ESPN's picture, Fox's picture. It's just further down the road for them. And so I'm trying to get people to realize like, yo, this is bad for all of us, like for college football in general.
Yeah.
And
just really quickly, can I add to that? That's why I add to that really quick. That's my main point. There are great fans like you, Connor, at schools that have great programs that are get lost in a wash here. And there's gonna be a lot of fans. There's big money right now in college football, but when you whittle it down to about 50 to 60 fan bases and you lose all those fan bases, they're gonna start following hockey. They're gonna start watching more pro football. They're gonna start watching more baseball again. They're gonna kill the golden goose with this thing. ESPN and Fox are big money grab here, are gonna kill the sport and kill the revenue overall. Because I will tell everyone, listen, we're all big college fans, right? We're here. It's like July. We're tuned into a Pac-12 show thing. Some of us doing victory laps, hand-wringing for some unknown reason, short-sighted, like I said. Others are here worried about the health of the entire sport. And when you have to look at is, if you want to talk about actual game, if you want to watch football, watch Sunday football, because the actual quality of play is a hell of a lot better than it is on Saturdays. Just all you got to look is the cornerback position alone at corner, and you can see the quality of the NFL game is superior. And the more we change it with clock rules, thank you to the TVs, the clock rules, and now we're paying players. We're making it into a little NFL. Well, guess what? When you have NFL, if we're going to do all this stuff and it's like this, it's NFL, the game and college game are almost the same. And there's only a small amount of teams. We lost half of the people that used to follow the sport. You're going to lose all the rest of the guys, because why not just go watch the NFL if that's what we want to turn this into, a little NFL junior? You guys are missing the point. So you guys are happy about today. Again, yay, good job, Big 12. You're not the worst conference, okay? I mean, I don't want to tell you about that. You need to stop hand-wringing and look at the big picture.
Tim, I completely agree with you. And I've like the thing that I've always thought about that, like, I'll add on to this that I know a lot of people disagree with me on, is I actually think that the playoff and the nationalization of college football is negative overall for the health of the game. Yeah, because as much as people love the playoff and being able to say, oh, we have one true champion of who played each other, it's great to talk about Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama every week. But the lifeblood of the sport is a lot more of the like you said, like the Oregon States, the Iowa State fans of the world that are watching Bama play whoever in the SEC because they are college football fans.
Right.
And if you just make them completely irrelevant, you lose a lot of that viewership that you think is just automatically there, I think.
Yeah, and that's
and
the short side,
real quick, just so we can bring somebody else in. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I'm just going to say that's exactly it. People don't realize they make fun of Pac-12 fans. Oh, no one watches Pac-12 games, blah, blah, blah. Pac-12 sucks. Guess what Pac-12 fans do? They do watch Georgia play Florida, right? They do watch these games because they're college football fans. But once they go to Major League Baseball, they're not watching that CBS game or whatever now it's going to be an ESPN game in the future. They're not going to watch that ESPN game because they're going to be watching something else because they're no longer college football fans.
And we saw that in the Northeast, actually. I mean, that's the history. If you look at the history of the Northeast, when they lost their teams, and they really lost their teams because, I mean, Penn was the team of Philly, and Harvard was the team of Boston, and Princeton was the team of New Jersey. And when they lost those teams lost relevance. Now, those teams gave up relevance. They didn't really have it taken away from them. But when they lost relevance, it decimated college football viewing really for the region. We got some other folks waiting. Larry and Alex, any final thoughts here?
No. Well, just for me, I think I'm wondering if these emergency meetings. Hopefully they're Zoom meetings and all these guys are getting together and agreeing to expand. And somebody needs to get the PR rolling in a reverse order. That's where I'm sitting.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Alex, any final words?
To what he was saying, again, I want the end game. If we enter this, if everything kind of pauses again after this weekend, I'm going to go crazy. Like, I just want I don't want a long fuse. Let's just go. Let's just get to whatever is next. And if the Big Ten wants to make a deal, they can find a way to make a deal. I'll just, we'll see how the next 48 hours go.
Well, hey, thanks for calling in. We're glad to have you.
Yep. Later.
All right. Next up, we actually have Ben joining us. Ben, we've got Ben joining us.
Hey guys.
Ben, welcome to the show.
Sorry, my Michigan emblem didn't. My Michigan emblem didn't show up this time. How you guys doing?
Your sound is really bad. Good. Hey, what's up? Your sound is really bad.
Titanic going down. The Titanic, the pack ship.
All right, let me see if I can. I'll tell you what. I'll see if I can get my mic fixed. You guys can pop me on in a second.
Okay, perfect. All right, let us know when it's fixed. All right, then next up, we've got Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. Jeffrey, welcome to the Pack Show.
What up, young blood?
What a day.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here and appreciate it. And definitely, I've been listening to you guys.
Actually, Jeffrey, hold on one sec. I just want to thank Michael Wall again. Sorry, we've had this up. We haven't gotten to actually thank him. And Michael brings up really good points about, SDSU might not be able to be added till 25. I'll tell you, we'll see about that because we may be in a world where the Pac wants to try to, finance things or do whatever. Because if I were the Pac, I would add him now. Sorry, Jeffrey, go on with what you were going to say.
Oh, no, you're good. Definitely 100%. You guys have been debating for the last, 15, 20 minutes that I've heard. Everything you guys are saying is 100% correct. Tim nailed it on the head. And I think you mentioned as well, Chris. The fact that you have, the playoff hurt because that's all that it became about. That's what it mattered. And the bowl games didn't matter. Nothing else mattered, which I just think is ridiculous because I love bowl games. I love watching the MAC play Conference USA. I love every single bowl game. And it's like the bowl games just aren't what they used to be. And it's like it's only the playoff. And now the money is so important. And it's like the players making money. I totally understand it. I get it. And everything. They work really hard. And I don't have a problem with that. But it's like it's all about money. And the Big Ten and SEC, they have more of it. And the Pac-12, despite the academics being just ridiculously strong, in the Pac-12, on the field and with the athletics part, it's not mattering right now. And that's why USC, UCLA are going to the Big Ten. And I agree with Tim 110% that, yes, the Pac-12 has bigger brands still than the Big 12, but it's still not going to save the conference as a whole. It's shot. Unfortunately, the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are never going to be what they once were. The only way you could fix that problem is if you get some of the teams back, and that's never going to happen.
Hey, Colorado just went back. USC, UCLA are coming back.
Colorado going to the Big 12. Colorado going to the Big 12, Connor. That's a move that, in my opinion, they should have never left. I know that the Pac-12 is better,
and USC, UCLA should never.
But Colorado should have never left the Big 12. I don't think. I think they should have stayed in the Big 12 the entire time. Should have never went to the Pac-12. I don't think Nebraska should have ever left the Big 12 or the Big 10. It was a money thing there. But Nebraska fit in the Big 12. Colorado fit in the Big 12. Geographically, everything fit 30 years ago. Now nothing fits. USC, UCLA are going to be in the Big 10 now. All that's out the window. But, it is what it is. I'm upset about it because I like when the conferences were the way they were. In a time that I didn't even exist yet. You had the Big East. You had the Big Eight, the Southwest Conference. I wish all that was still, in existence, because it made everything more competitive. All the conferences were about even. You didn't have a conference that was better. When the Pac-12 was dominant in the 90s and 2000s, they were not a conference that you say, oh, they're leaps and bounds better than the SEC and the Big Ten. It was very tight and it was competitive. Now it's the Big Ten, SEC, and everyone's getting left behind. It's very unfortunate. That's the biggest thing for me that just stinks about it all.
Yeah, I look at it as the SEC always being the top dog, and then the Big Ten adding USC, UCLA was to try to keep up. I still think there's a separation, and I know these guys are joining the Big Ten, but and I know this is kind of a Big Ten channel with Mark being Ohio State, but outside of Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, there's nothing that is that much more special about the Big Ten. So I think if the Pac doesn't dissolve, there will probably be like a 5 to 10 year grace period of stability. I just think that the next week, days to be more specific, will kind of decide a lot of things. But no, I mean, you make a good point about Colorado going back home and it being familiar. I'd like to get Tony's opinion. Since they've joined the Pac, their research dollars they've been getting have been
up 50%.
It's the 4th year in a row that it's over $1 billion. And in 2010, the year before they left, it was
if you include the
million, it's like doubled. So where does that hurt going back to the Big 12? And then also, how about like losing the California students? It was the biggest out of state tuition dollars. Like, is Colorado going to take a step back academically?
So that's a good question. So there's actually been some really interesting research on this done by Stanford School of Education. Did research in 2014. They looked at 20 years of realignment or whatever, and they found that schools that realigned, their the reputation scores of their rankings were very strongly correlated to the conference they were joining. That joining that conference improved their reputation. Now, Colorado is an interesting case because no school has ever, in the major conferences up until today or tomorrow, has ever taken an academic downgrade in the conferences. So this is kind of an interesting thing. Everyone else has always made an upgrade before. So this is the very first academic downgrade, which is kind of interesting. I mean, there's been some that went independent. Like you could argue that Sewanee, when they quit the SEC to go independent, that was a downgrade. But as far as lateral conference moves, this is the first downgrade. The real question too will come, is this going to be an issue for their faculty? Their faculty, I've heard, are very unhappy with this. Will that cause them to have more trouble recruiting faculty? Now there were rumors, I don't know if it's true, that anybody that was going to leave was going to be cut off from the PAC's academic consortium. That is costly and bad. We'll see if they follow through on that. I don't know if they will. The PAC is not as vindictive as they should be. The PAC should be way more vindictive, but they're not. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, Colorado's a great school. Colorado's always been a great school. The question is, will they continue their same trajectory of greatness, or will it, slow a little bit? What could have been. I mean, you look at, for example, you look at Rice. Right? Let's pick on Rice because Rice is a ultra elite school, and who's been in Conference USA forever. Would Rice be better if they were in the Big Ten? Probably. They might be more like Northwestern or Stanford if they'd been in the Big Ten in the last 50 years. So, it really gets into that.
Do you mean like the diploma?
The score. No, it's actually there's a score that goes into your college rankings.
From there.
Yeah, no, so there's actually in the rankings, there's a score that comes from, they survey people, they survey faculty and other schools and all kinds of stuff. And what Stanford found when they did the research in 2014 on that was that there was a strong correlation that they move every year slightly towards the mean, which was improved in all those cases, was an improvement. So again, we'll see. Again, Colorado's a great school, so we'll see what happens. And we're not talking about Rice sports, guys. We've triggered the Michigan fans talking about Rice in the Big Ten. We're not talking about Rice in the Big Ten. We're using an example. Hey, we've got a friend of the show, Sergeant Pickles, actually joining us. We We have not had a
Hey,
Husky
you
perspective yet.
How's it going, everybody?
Sergeant Pickles,
Make it rain.
what is the word from Seattle?
I'll put it this way. I'm pouring one out for the Pack. It's been a good run. We'll check back in 10 years. Honestly, I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, it's not that surprising. On the other, it's pretty hard to watch people dance on your grave. So,
Actually, do you guys want a really funny Washington realignment laugh?
Seriously.
Washington to
So
the Mountain
in
West.
1950, Washington, the Mountain West.
Come with us.
In the spring. So in December 1957, in the old Pacific Coast Conference, which was like the Pac-8 plus Idaho. So with the old conference,
And
USC,
Montana.
Cal, and Stanford. I'm sorry, and they left. Montana left in 1950, but
I was born in
USC, Cal, and
Montana,
UCLA.
so show some respect.
Nice.
Chris.
Well, they quit in December, but the conference was still thought it was going to continue, and then in March, Washington announced that they were leaving too, but it was because the conference was dissolving, and the rest of the conference said we weren't dissolving, and Washington said, "Yeah, you were," and just left, and then the conference did dissolve. So that was on the Huskies on that one.
Yeah, history repeats itself in one way or another, I guess.
Knock on wood.
It often does.
Yeah,
Now, Sergeant Pickle,
Go
here's
ahead.
a question for you. Not to point fingers, but the chair of the Pac-12 for the last year has been Dr. Couchy. Should there be some fingers pointed at, what is it, Odegaard Hall or whatever?
As far as I'm concerned, the last two sets of presidents and commissioners should be fired because they've let Pac-12 fans down more so. Like, people can say, "Oh, well, the university's snooty and arrogant," and in some ways that's definitely true. Most of us aren't alumni. Like, I didn't go to college, but I'm a Washington fan. This is, my home. It's where I grew up, and it's a pride in this area, and even Cougar fans too. And you've let down all those people because they don't care how much medical research you do. Yes, I know it's important, but they don't care. They watch football, they watch basketball, and you failed all of us. It's like a civic pride thing, It's like your pro sports teams. They belong to the place they're in and to the fans of that team, and they failed us. They did.
Yeah, I think they were so pompous about the idea of this happening, like just brushing off that this couldn't happen because they were the Pac-12, they were academic, and Stanford and Cal, and so on. And so maybe they just kept kicking the ball down the road as if like, we'll get to that athletic thing, when it only takes up like a percentage of the overall university. They're not giving it the credence and due diligence, which is why I said the Utah or Robbins, Arizona, like those presidents who understand the value of athletics now need to step in if there's any chance of saving at all, and like literally grab the ones who aren't taking it seriously and shake them up, because I mean, it's not all crumbled to the ground yet, but it's getting awfully close.
Yeah, the Pack is dead. Long live the Pack.
Long live the Pack. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
It's
that's
already
happened
dead.
before.
I mean, it was dead when UCLA left.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, but they also said that in 1957.
Connor, can I ask you a question though? Actually, all you guys, all the other Pac-12 fans. Here's what I gotta say to you: the way the Pac-12 has handled all of this since USC left, do you have questions why USC left still?
no, I don't have questions. Why?
If there
I don't
was
have
a deal,
questions
I
why
wouldn't
you
question
left.
it at all.
Yeah,
I just
I'm not
figured they were
questioning why
being-
you left. So.
And if there was a deal in place, then I wouldn't be questioning it at all. The tactics of staying silent and taking the high road, whatever George said, like if there was a deal in place that was 30 mil and network, then like I wouldn't be pointing fingers or.
I'm just trying to keep it real. I mean, I listen. I love the Pac-12. My whole lifetime, USC was in the Pac-12, and it's been a great conference. No matter what these other conferences want to tell you, Pac-12. You go back 20 years, is one of the best conferences around, going back to the 80s and even into the 90s and then 2000s. one of the best. It was right there with everybody else. This wasn't like it is recently with the SEC. But the leadership at all levels, at the university level, at the conference level, really, for whatever the past decade, just rode this thing into the ground. And so USC, I like to believe we have really good leadership. Some of the hiring choices we made have been pretty dodgy to begin with. But the fact is USC goes on sanctions, goes into the tank for about a decade or so, and then the conference followed right into the tank. And so my question is this: it's why wouldn't I know everyone on this panel right now, if they would have had a chance a year ago to leave the Pac-12, they would have done the same thing. Especially and what's validated to me is the way the Pac-12 has handled their house since USC and UCLA left validates why USC and UCLA left, in my opinion.
I think all the
root.
And Tim, just to build on that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, just to build on that. We've said repeatedly the Pac needed to do something. Like we said on this show before Media Days, they needed to do something, whether that was add somebody, whether that was, actually release more details of their number. I mean, they've chosen to be very secretive, and very secretive is fine if your ducks are all in a row. And clearly, at least with Colorado, their ducks were not in a row. And that was a huge mistake. I mean, again, we've said since February, they needed to do something. And I think they need to do something this week.
Tony, speaking of ducks, Mountain West or Big 12, what do you think?
Big
12?
Sky. I mean, let's be clear.
That's what I want.
Another historical app, by the way. The old Pac did not want anything to do with Oregon. The only reason Oregon got in the Pac, they got in for two reasons. One, they had a really famous running back named John McKay, who lobbied a couple of votes for them. And two, this is actually really funny. When they were putting together the new Pac in 1959, Stanford and UCLA would not speak, and the Big Ten was forcing them to bring Stanford in. And Stanford's deal was Stanford would only join the new Pac if UCLA was never allowed to vote. So the president of the University of California cast one vote for Cal and for UCLA. And so the deal to let Oregon and Oregon State in was that UCLA got their vote back. So otherwise, Oregon would probably be in the Mountain West today.
They've been a bunch
Kind
of
of a funny
drama
laugh.
from the beginning.
They have. Yeah, the Pac has always been the Real Housewives anyway. This is just another chapter of the Real Housewives of the West Coast.
Might be the last one.
Hey, we got Ben and
media. The big media who's controlling all this, who's pulling all these strings, have deemed the Pac not worthy of their money. They only want to pay for conferences. They'll pay pro rata for Colorado for people to move, but they're not going to shell out for what I assume is the fan and the viewership difference because it's not as strong. And so this is just all cogs in their machine. And the big picture, which we don't know, which probably only a handful of people know, has probably already counted the Pac down and out, or have left room for them to be a Mountain West 2.0.
Real quick, we got Jackson and Ben waiting. Sergeant Pickles and Jeffrey, any final thoughts here?
Yes, for sure. I think that something that could have actually saved the Pac-12 maybe longer than what currently happened with USC and UCLA leaving and Colorado now leaving is back when the Pac-12 Network was created. They should have marketed the network to actually be relevant where people could watch it and it would make more money, because the Big Ten Network and the SEC Network and the ACC Network make a lot of money. I mean, they are.
But then the other conferences would have seen how bad we are at football, or we were at football. We're not bad now.
Well,
but
when
if
the
we would have been
Pac-12 Network
televised,
was created, Connor, the Pac-12 was good. The Pac-12 Network was created in like the late 2000s.
17.
And
The problem is it went off a cliff. Jeffrey, it went off a cliff right after they launched the network, which is part of the problem. And the other big thing is they did the network without a partner. They wanted to own it.
I understand that.
They screwed it up.
That's the
You're right.
problem, though. The Pac-12, like Tim said, he's 100% correct. The death of the conference and why it's going the way it is and why USC is leaving is because of all the mistakes they made. This is all their fault. It's all the Big 12's fault. It's all these conferences' fault for not being able to compete with the Big 10 and the SEC. They could have easily done it, especially the Pac-12, because of the money that they make in academics. There's no reason this should have occurred, but they just didn't do their due diligence at all, and now we're where we're at. And once the can goes down the road too far, it's never going to roll back where it came from. It's just at this point. I mean, I want the Pac-12 to survive. But I mean, who knows what's going to happen? If Oregon and Washington leave, it's over. I mean, there's nothing else that you can do. I mean, adding SMU,
where do you think they're going to go?
San Diego State, it's just not gonna help. Well, I mean, I understand the Big Ten.
Where Oregon
say not going to go to the Big Ten, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I have no idea, but I just don't really think even with Oregon and Washington, the Pac-12 is that viable. It's just not because.
But Jeffrey, hold on, you're making
you're way too ahead.
You're making a good point, Jeffrey, but here's my point.
Mm-hmm.
What is adding BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston?
No, it doesn't. You're 100% correct, Tim.
That's what I'm saying.
It's just the Pac-12's not on the Big 10 SEC level. It doesn't matter what the Big 12 is. The Big 12 is even more irrelevant than the Pac-12. They both are compared to those two conferences. That's the problem. That's the unfortunate thing.
One just has a really bad TV contract they want to talk about and brag they'll get a couple of million more than the other school. And now it looks like the Pac-12 probably is not getting any TV contract the way that George's dragging this thing out. But, I'm saying, why not add like 3 or 4 G5 schools and become the, just like the Big 12 with a better marquee teams like Washington and Oregon. You add someone put in, Tony, you can tell me we're wrong on this one. I mean, it's a pretty good booming, it's a building market. So why would UNLV not be a good choice? I know there's a reason.
The reason has always been that their team is awful and no one watches them. They've actually never been ranked in the history of the AP poll. Never, not once.
Yeah.
Well, most of the teams
and they have
the academics.
In Stanford.
Boise doesn't have the academics, and because their football team, especially 10, 15 years ago, was elite, but they're not as good anymore. But the city of Boise is getting a lot bigger. The TV market would be better, but they don't have the academics. Las Vegas is great, but like you said, Tony, UNLV is awful. And SMU, I mean, they were an historic brand a long time ago, so historic that they got their entire program taken away for a few years. And, I mean, that's good. And then San Diego State's fine as well because San Diego's great, but it's not going to make the Pac-12. At the end of the day, no matter what, the Pac-12 will never compete with the Big 10 and the SEC again, and that's all that matters. That's what matters at the end of the day. It doesn't matter that you're better than the Big 12 because, yes, the Pac-12 is better than the Big 12. I agree with you, Tony and Tim, and Sergeant Pickles and Connor and Chris and every single other person. You guys have been debating about the Big 12 and the Pac-12 forever. Pac-12 is better than the Big 12. It is better, but it's still not the Big 10 and the SEC, and that's what matters. That's all that matters. And unfortunately, I am completely against everything that has happened the last 25 years with realignment. I can't stand it, but there's nothing any of us can do about it, unfortunately. And like I said, it's just not going to make the Pac-12 ever as viable as those two conferences again, and that's the sad thing. I wish it would not be like this, but here we are.
There's not many. I mean, I know I'm going the wrong here. I'll try to have a round to the USC. Here's the point. The big point is once USC left, it was never going to be the same again. Because think of it this way. What if you I'm going to say this sincerely, and I don't hope I don't piss too many Penn State fans and Iowa fans off right now. But let's say we go into the Big Ten and we take Michigan and Ohio State. We yank them out of their conference, right? And then we leave the Big Ten the way it is. Sure, there's still going to be a good conference, but are they really talked about the way they are if they don't have USC and Michigan and Ohio State? Of course they're not. So when you go to the Pac-12 and you pull out two of the marquee teams in the the second largest TV market in the country, and you yank them out, and then you leave the other 10 teams, it's not going to be the same. And then so the problem with this is to right hand lead. Here's the thing. Larry Scott thought it was a great idea to this parity thing, right? So we're going to make everyone even now. And, a lot of the Pac-12 has, yeah, let's do this. Let's do that. Because USC dominated for a whole decade. We got to remember that. And there were a lot of pissed off Pac-12 fans. Pac-12 wanted to pull USC down a peg. And the problem was nobody really could go to that mantle. We had some great runs from Washington just recently, right? In 2017 or 2016, sorry, 2016. You know, you had some
16's
really good
easier.
Oregon teams, you had some really, really good Stanford teams, but no one really got to that level where they were taken seriously on a national stage. And every conference needs to have that Alabama, that Georgia, that Ohio State, that Clemson, right, type team. And it was a flagship team. And the Pac-12 didn't have that without USC. And so the issue is when they did that, when the Pac-12 didn't stick up for USC and let them get hammered the way they did. That was probably the beginning of all this.
Well, there was that, right? There was
Yeah.
that, Tim, and then there was also this correct me if I'm wrong, but there was like this huge emphasis on like the Olympic sports, and I get, especially the California schools are like very good in a ton of sports, and it's great to be good in a ton of sports, but it can't be at the like cost of what makes the money, right?
I mean,
Well,
would you ever see
people make fun of the conference of champions thing, but it's like, yes, the Pac-12 is the conference of champions because they win in like everything that's not basketball and football. But at the end of the day, what matters is basketball and football. Like the Big 12, I mean, say what you want about the Big 12, but the basketball is going to be fine. I mean, they're going to have some great basketball. Pac-12's not. Pac-12 basketball is going to be Arizona.
And they only got one. Arizona
it.
gets more pubs than anyone for the small amount they actually did in basketball. I mean, yes, they've got good runs, but really, what have they totally won? They have one championship?
It cost me a lot of pools. Hey, real quick, I want to thank right hand lead. Tim will agree with this. Tim, you want to address the super chat?
That's why I addressed. That's what I was talking about. The fact that with the Pac-12 got hammered. That's why I went on that. I continued that little diatribe because I was actually addressing that fact that. Sure, it sounded great to a lot of teams in the Pac-12 when it happened, knocking USC down a peg. It did help everyone out, but the big picture is not having a strong USC did hurt our conference. Period. I mean,
well,
we can argue all day about it.
100%, Tim. And I mean, you look at Big Ten basketball. I mean, you talk about the football. Yeah, you've got Ohio State, now Michigan recently that are always there. But then you talk about basketball. Indiana was the brand in basketball for the longest time. Titles, Bob Knight, all that kind of stuff. They tank. You do have one title with Tom Izzo, but they haven't won since 2000. So people just completely trashed Big Ten basketball because they can't win anymore. So, I mean, that doesn't change the fact that the Big Ten as a conference is fine because they are adding USC, UCLA, and you are good in football with Ohio State, Michigan, but the basketball is struggling. It's just they're just lucky that basketball is not what matters as much as football.
It's true. Jeffrey, thank you for joining us tonight. We're glad to have you.
Jeffrey, before you take off, I know you're leaving. But I just want to say shout out. Where are you at now? Like 1.1 subs? 1.1K?
I appreciate that, man. I'm at 1,000, 1.15K. I really appreciate that.
I was at 1.14 like yesterday, last time I checked. So that's huge. I think the consistency is where it's at. That's what people say about the YouTube game. It's just like the amount of content you turn out. And also I see you. It goes a little against your personality and nothing against you, but I see you trying to like do the hype up YouTuber thing, like, "Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is," like, which is you have to do it, and you're getting more viewers for it probably. So good shit, man. Stuff.
I really appreciate. I'm still pretty flat though compared to 99% of people. Though I try. I don't want to scare off some people.
Jeffrey has a great YouTube channel that only talks sports, guys. Take a look. Give him a subscription. He's fantastic. We love Jeffrey.
Now you got to do a Beaver video for doing that shout out for you.
I will do an Oregon State video, but again, most importantly,
we're going to the Natty.
For the shout out, but everyone subscribe to Mark Rogers at the Voice of College Football because he works the hardest. That he is working right now as we speak, and he deserved Big Ten Media Days. That was awesome that happened for sure. But again, thanks for having me on, guys.
And can we have a moment where we recognize that our friend Mark Rogers, our fearless leader here today, sounded awesome. He was asking some of the best questions of the day to James Franklin and Ryan Day. So it was great to have Mark out there at Big Ten Media Days. Mark, you were looking good. Jeffrey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks you Jeffrey. So much. Thanks for the shout out as well. Appreciate it. And hopefully the Pac-12 and the Big 12 in any conference, they're not dead. Please live.
We hope so. Thank you. Sergeant Pickles, any final thoughts here?
No.
From the dogs.
Yeah.
We could talk football for a second. I mean.
Yeah. We want to talk just football. That'll cheer me up a little bit. This is about to be a great season. I actually I am pretty much calling it a push on the Beavs game. I think that's going to be an absolute bloodbath because our team, we can sling it all over the yard, but I know your defense is pretty solid. So, and I know you're just going to run it until we die like it's 1978. So we'll see how that goes. Our defense.
We'll try to break the record. Do 20 times in a row. It's really 19 against Oregon.
I remember Ryan Reckignall. I hated playing that dude. Even on bad Beaver teams, he was just annoying to play against. So
yeah, white kid.
Yeah, you don't see that very
anymore. Just it's a rare.
I mean, just statistically, that is a low probability.
Yeah, no, statistically, it's him, Christian McCaffrey, the guy that was on the Madden game. What was his name? Peyton Hillis.
Peyton Hillis. That's another one.
Yeah, it doesn't happen much, so you gotta.
Yeah, the Huskies pretty much murdered Christian McCaffrey's Heisman hopes because they beat him in that late night nationally televised game, both ranked teams. That was pretty much the only one people watched because all the other Stanford games were who knows where on YouTube Plus or something.
Fun fact, Beaver alum and great Adley Rutschman, place kicker on the Oregon State football team, had an open field tackle against Christian McCaffrey.
There you go. Hey,
and now he's
I remember that.
One of the best catchers in the league.
That that's one more tackle than any of us have. So
yeah, imagine trying to take down CMC. My God,
right place, right time.
But okay. So Penix, talk about your receivers real quick. I mean, Adunze, I might have mispronounced his name, but to me is the best receiver in the Pac-12.
Rome Adunze and Jalen McMillan. Jalen Polk transferred. He was their third guy. But Adunze and McMillan are going to be among the best duos. It's pretty interesting because you see a lot of, these national lists, and a lot of it's for click and hypes. But they do their research, and they're putting Washington up there with, Texas and the Ohio State guys. And you see fans across the country.
Well.
Yeah, of course. But all the traditional names you would think of that recruit high-profile players. And they're like, I've never even heard of these guys. They're trash. And I'm like, you haven't watched a single
that East Coast
game.
bias.
No, yeah. And speaking of that bias, real quick, Connor, like Josh Pate had a tweet that I think said something along the lines of like, if the Pac-12 this season had an ACC sticker on it, people would be talking about it as like the most exciting conference in football this year.
He's right.
He's right.
We're the second best conference, and I don't think it's close.
It's going to be wild. Sergeant Pickles. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My last one, I'm just, the top 5 of the pack, I think, is going to put together some of the most exciting matchups in the country. And
rank them for us.
Connor, you're fifth. Connor, stop. He's going to have you at 5.
DJ.
I'm going to go on recency bias. And last time I checked, the reigning Civil War champions are the Oregon State Beavers. So they are my number 4, no offense, over the Duckies. Because they
got the Platypus Trophy.
Yeah, we got the Platy Natty.
SC is 1 until the Huskies beat them later this year. That'll be a great game.
That'll be a good game.
Dub under that. I think Utah's 3rd. I know that a lot of people have them over. You could quibble and argue with me about UW or Utah 2 and 3. And then I would put the Beavs over the Duckies because I refuse to give Oregon anything that makes them happy. Yeah.
No, you go after that. Let's go to 7 because I think there's 7 interesting teams that could make a push.
To round it out, I'd go UCLA and then Wazoo.
Over Zona. Do you have Zona at 8 or?
I think that Wazoo and Arizona are kind of all in that bubble. UCLA is like teetering on the verge of, are they going to be a good team or a close to 500 team? They could really go either way because their schedule is kind of crazy.
I might have Arizona like 9 or 10.
Hot take.
Hey, there you go. Wazoo rips off a couple wins they don't deserve and then Cougs it a couple other times, so it kind of evens out for them. But they always somehow end up like between 7-5 and 5-7. I don't know how that works.
And people forget, besides Braylon Trice, Stone Jr. is probably the best edge rusher in the pack right now.
Yeah, as an individual player, he's up there for sure.
Yeah,
but past all that,
Conference Commissioner Gumby has reminded us of the Oregon State University.
Yes, indeed, the Oregon State.
And thank you to Matthew Miller for the super chat. We really appreciate that. Help support Mark and the channel. Thank you for that. He says SEC starting next year is best in football, baseball, and second in basketball. They are good in football and baseball.
Somebody in the chat said the Pac-12 sucked at baseball. Need I remind them that the only school outside the SEC in the last 6 years to win the Natty is the Oregon State Beavers.
And the only school
we're bringing that national brand baseball, if that's a thing for college baseball, we got it.
Washington made the tournament this year.
I know.
There we go. And
Stanford was up there
too. The year we won.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Sergeant Pickles. We appreciate it. Glad to have you.
Yep. All right. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Purple Rain.
All right. Who we got next? Let's just bring in. We've got a few folks. Let's bring in. We've got Ben Baller, Ben, and Jackson. Or
What's
Jackson,
good?
hold on for just a minute. Ben Baller, welcome.
Hey, what's good? What we talking about tonight, man?
What?
What's the topic?
I
couldn't hear you.
Have you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Nah, I just hopped on, man. We're trying to hop on one of these live shows, man. Season's revving up. I'm excited. Can't wait.
It's gonna be fun.
About Colorado's move.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't think that's too impactful. Colorado's kind of a lower tier school. Maybe they turn into something. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's too impactful. I think the Pac-12 is dissolving anyways. Eventually, I don't even know if there's going to be a Pac-12, so that's my opinion on that.
We'll have to see. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, Michigan about to win this natty, man. Can't wait.
Hey, it's gonna be fun. Go blue.
I thought I was going to bring up the Big Ten teams.
Oh wow, 2 Michigan guys by chance.
Oh, we got 2. We got way too much Michigan.
What do they say in Ohio? It's Michigan or TTUN?
You guys didn't know there was big news going on?
Well, hold on. We got a question for you because for as long as we have 2 Michigan fans here, what was Brutus Buckeye telling us in his picture with the duck?
That's a good. Oh, you know what? That's a good point. He could be saying, that the Pac-12, it's going to be no more. It's going to be irrelevant soon. Oregon's coming over to the Big Ten. I think that's what he could be hinting.
Now,
What if Ohio State's scared of Michigan and they're going?
Real quick, guys, the Stanford Tree has alleged that he believes the Stanford Tree thinks that Ohio State is joining the Pac-12.
Okay, okay.
We'll have to
Ryan
see. We'll have
doesn't
to
want
see.
to face Harbaugh anymore.
It's probably as likely as the Ducks join the Big Ten, so who knows?
You heard Ryan Day Big Ten media days, man. The guy can't stop complaining, man. Now he wants to play the Michigan game at a different time of year. He doesn't want to play him back to back.
It's true.
I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
It's true. Hey, I know there's going to be lots of coverage of Michigan on the channel because Mark is live for Media Days. Any Pac-12 thoughts from you guys before we wrap up?
Yes, I did have some Pac-12 thoughts, and so do you guys have your top teams for the 3 teams I'm looking at the Pac-12 this year? Is honestly I'm high in Washington. Washington, I think they have the highest return. I think Washington's like one of the highest returning productions of any Power 5 team, and they were they had 2 losses last year, and they were a good team. So I mean, I'm big on returning production.
Everyone thinks that Washington's do well this year, so we're all there with you. Yes,
it's going to be a hot take, but and then USC.
Hold on, real quick, Ben. One sec. Ben Ball, you have there's a lot of background noise. So I'm going to take you out real quick. Anything else?
I guess I think USC's gonna win Pac-12, man. I just think they're the most talented squad in the Pac. I really don't think. I just don't see any team really having a chance to get in that playoff. So I'll say that about the Pac.
Now, mind you, Ben, Oregon State
they can play defense.
Oregon State threw 4 interceptions and still hung in the game with USC last year. Does that sway your opinion one way or the other?
I just think that the gap between them and the rest of the Pac-12s. I also think they're building on what they did last year. It was the first year. They were turning up production. I just think, a second year with Lincoln Riley, second year with that system, second year with continuity. Yeah, I messed up that word. I just think that it's going to be enough to widen that gap, and I just think they're going to make the
They
playoff.
do have the second best offensive line in the pack. Could you tell me in the top 5, Michigan, USC, and Oregon State are all in there? That's the first, third, fifth.
Yeah. Well, Michigan got like 3 NFL lines right now. I mean, in terms of offensive lines, no one competes with them. But yeah, I mean, USC.
Right,
I just think
we're done. Real quick, we're done in Michigan. Anything else on the Pac-12?
I just think I think it's a one-team conference this year. That's what I think. I think
I like it. I'll take it.
yeah.
So far now. No, I'm just
It's my honest opinion.
I like your thinking, but I'm not sure if I can agree with you.
Thank you, Ben.
I gotta throw out the stat.
No
that
We'll talk to you soon.
After hearing the comment that it's a one-team conference, I do have to throw out the stat that it's the only conference with 6 teams that have a Vegas win total of 8.5 or higher.
Back to pack.
Okay, but that's taking into consideration who they play, though.
Yeah, each other.
Half the league is elite.
Oh, I hate that.
I mean,
And the bottom half ain't bad.
Conference. I mean,
If Colorado improves, ASU improves, Wazoo, Zona. So who's bad?
Colorado improves, they might
on
win
our
2
weekly
games this
schedule?
year, yeah.
well, the Pac-12 to me, they don't necessarily have any bad teams. They have. To me, this is how I look at it. They got one elite team, great to elite team, and then they have a bunch of really good / average teams.
Talking about who they play, and I know we're done talking about Michigan, but like, I shouldn't be talking as a UCLA fan, and Connor can't really talk either. But if you want to play the who they play card, you can't do that as a Michigan fan in your schedule.
Okay, well, hold on. We gonna do this.
You
Hold on. Who do you play? Hold on. Who do you play? This. If this was your conference, guaranteed you got 2 losses. Penn State and Ohio State. Who do you play on that level? Penn State, Ohio State.
We were supposed to play Michigan, but you guys canceled the game.
Okay,
They did. Michigan was afraid to go
you can use it this year, man.
Harbaugh said, "Nah, don't."
well, hold on. Let's go with that logic. Let's go with that logic. If you go by that average win total thing, right? Those teams, if they're in the Big Ten, would most likely have to play all 3: Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State. Guaranteed, guaranteed.
Who after that? Who else?
Not if they're in the West.
So we
Not
got
if they're in the
3
West.
teams?
Guaranteed 3 losses, and those teams are probably good.
Guys, hold on. This channel has 9 hours a day of Big Ten coverage, and we have live Big Ten coverage from the Big Ten Media Days where Mark Rogers is at. So we got to move on. We got to bring Jackson in. Any final thoughts on the pack, guys? Final thoughts here. We'll bring Jackson in.
Yeah.
We'll see. USC in the playoff. Michigan versus USC. Maybe we'll see.
I love, as a Michigan native and a Trojan alum, I like that.
Damn it, you sucked
Thank
them
you.
back in.
Right on, Ben. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Peace out.
All right, peace out.
Yeah, I was just actually when I came on, you guys were still talking about Colorado leaving, and I agree with you guys on this being. I think it's sad for the Pac-12 to be going through what the Pac-12 is going through if it does decline as a conference, because I can just see college football as a whole, like, years down the road just the way I think just according to, just along with what Tim was saying, I think they're, going after the money so much right now, the quick buck, that they're not, it's not about the overall health of college football in whole. And I think maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line, I may talk to somebody that's never watched college football before and saying to them, every game used to matter. Every game you watch used to be win or break your season. You couldn't have 3 losses in a season and make the college playoffs. And I just see things going that direction, and it kind of saddens me, especially and then when you see with the Pac-12, just the tradition and the Pac-12, and I've learned a lot more about the tradition from talking to you guys, and there's just so much there, and it's sad to see that going. And I just really agree with that. And as a Big Ten fan, or just a college fan in general, it's just a hard thing to see happen. It's not something I want to see.
I don't know if I fully believe you, because the Big Ten and Michigan included strengthened by adding USC and UCLA. So I get that you are equal parts torn, that it's tearing the fabric of the game, but also, I mean, if Big Ten needed to keep up with the SEC because the media was driving this greed perspective, you can't really fault them. It all goes back to just greed and big media thinking that this is what the average fan wants, when really we could be like in Europe, for example, the English Premier League. They tried to form a super league, so like Barcelona, Real Madrid, all the big teams in Europe tried to form a league, and the EPL and their biggest brands, Chelsea and Man U, were the loudest against it, saying, "No, we want to play Leeds United." And I think that if we go much longer down this route, it'll be that much harder to kind of rally against, as college football fans, against what the media wants and how they're going to make the most money.
And hey, real quick, thank you, Gixxer Squid, for a super chat here. Guys, here's a good question for us. Which coach has in the Pac-12, which coach has the most pressure to perform this year?
Riley.
That's a good question.
I can answer the rest of that question too, in terms of how I'd rank I'm in
on that one too. We'll do that. Hit that really quickly.
I'll give like a top top.
Let's do top 6. Do top half.
All right, I'll do the top half. I would say Whittingham, from like a purely coaching perspective, right? I'm not talking about like recruiting, building a program, like in terms of talent or whatever, but I'm saying like you take what you got and you turn it into the best product.
Hold on. You're redefining the question. The question is,
because it's different. You would admit that it's different coaching at Utah, Oregon State than it is coaching at USC, right? It's easier to win at SC.
Larry, I'd plug your ears, please, quickly. I would counter, but he's at Utah, so I'm going to say.
Okay.
The expectations rise, though. I agree with Serge.
Winning the highest expectations and the most pressure is on Riley. How I would rank them, I would probably say Whittingham, then Riley, then Jonathan Smith. Then I think it's an argument between DeBoer and Chip Kelly. And then I think you have a little bit more of question marks. You have like new coach at Stanford, so that's a question mark. I can't answer that. Dillingham, I'm very, very interested to see what happens. That's a question mark. I can't answer that. I'm not as high on Jed Fish as most people, but in terms of that like top 5, I don't care how you rank them, but I think that's what the top 5 has to be.
Yeah, I have all the respect in the world, because there's coaches out there that can do great on the underdog role, but then really building a program to be number 1. I don't think Coach Witt's that guy. I think just his style and everything, he's not going to recruit and have the culture you need to have in order to win at the highest level. So that's why I can't put him there, Chris. I'm not cracking on him at all. I'm just saying there's if you want to talk about the best coaches in college football, you put Lincoln Riley number 1, and then Coach Whittingham's right there, next one at 2. What are teams I got? So then I agree with you as well. I would have to flip a coin between Jonathan Smith and Chip Kelly at 3, and then Kalen DeBoer. And then I can't, Dion has anything at division at the FBS level. Wilcox, no. Jed Fish, no. Dillingham.
Lanning is somewhere up there.
Lanning?
Yeah, I mean, after the name.
I could see Lanning being under a lot of pressure on account of this is the last year for Bo Nix. I mean,
well, that's the answer, I think, to the pressure question is on Lanning. I think
without Dilly, yeah.
He has to put up or shut up. He's talking a lot of game up there, and he has probably, if you want to look at your stars, it's they have the best talent in the conference. We look just purely at the recruiting stars, so he had better do something. Otherwise, the question marks are going to be raised. But you can
although real quick, guys, remember Dan Lanning's contract extension is being signed by the Board of Regents.
Oh yeah, that's big right there. I mean.
Is it premature?
Maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
He
Ask
has
Michigan
to prove
State.
he has an offense without Dilly.
It's not.
That's the
Ask
big
Michigan
question,
State how that worked out.
It's not premature if you want to try to lock him in instead of taking a SEC or Big Ten job that's going to have a lot more money to offer him. So yes, it's premature in the idea that like, oh, maybe it doesn't work out for Oregon, but it's not premature in the sense that you are protecting against people with bigger purses. Although if Phil Knight, there's an endless bag of money. So I take that back because Oregon is sort of a different situation than the rest of the conference.
Hey, Chris, really quick.
I think my
Chris, really
answer to this
quickly, how about this
question.
question? If I flip it around and I say to you, you're the AD at USC, you get to pick between Whittingham or Lincoln Riley. Who do you take?
I think that SC was looking at Whittingham a few years ago, and I was scared to death of him going there because I think that he would have killed it.
Right, but who do you think if you had to make that choice right now, you could hire Kyle Whittingham, or you could hire
I think
Luke
Riley.
Ryan.
I think Riley is a better fit for SC, and I think Whittingham is a better fit for Utah. I don't think if you're Utah, do you hire Riley or do you hire Whittingham?
Well, I mean, we're talking about the best
question
coach.
between the
And,
two
I'm
is-
assuming by best coach we mean someone that could win at the highest level, right?
I don't know that I agree with that. I'm talking about just like best coach for like where they
The
are.
Pac-12, then the best.
I
Who could
wanna
win the
attack it.
Pac-12?
I mean, Whittingham's done it the last 2 years.
Yeah, but Riley. Listen. There's reasons why Riley last year and Riley wasn't there 2 years
Look,
ago.
I'm not. It's not like I'm saying Riley is a bad coach, and I think that he is by far the best fit for his school in the conference. And I'm not saying that Whittingham would be better at SC, but I don't know that Riley would be better than Whittingham at Utah.
Well, I mean, again, I gotta be careful because Tony always tells me be careful how I say these things. All the respect in the world to Utah, but Utah is. I'm gonna say it. Utah is Utah, and they're one of those programs that's done very well in the Pac-12. But when you get to the national stage, that's where it stops. Do you know what I mean?
We've seen,
and I think the
Riley's
question-
ceiling. I don't think that Whittingham has had the chance to be in the position that
He's
Riley's been in.
been there forever.
With ceiling, he's been there forever, sure. But like as far as making CFPs, Riley's track record isn't very good. Witt just hasn't had.
Isn't very good. He's been in what, 4 of them?
It's a good question though. I mean, I
think you have to.
lean
But,
Riley.
yeah, when you look at this question though, you have to really define what pressure is. I mean, Lincoln Riley is not pressured of losing his job.
Can I give somebody else?
Ben,
Can I give somebody else
what's
that
that?
I think? Can I give somebody else that I think is under pressure? Wilcox.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
where I
know.
see
The
the pressure.
university, but
Well,
like,
who
I
are
I
they
think
gonna
it is.
compare him with?
From who? I actually think that he is underappreciated from a purely coaching perspective. I think that he's in a very tough spot.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think
Very
it's to steal a line from Bud Elliott. I think it's sort of become a like take your check, take your losses position, and it's just like a very hard position to be in. I don't know that like they play. If you like the way that they play, they are actually like a very well coached team on the field that plays very, very hard. And I have a lot of respect for the way that they play. They're just not very good.
Now, Mike 3883 says the Pac-10 is under pressure. I would like to disagree because I would say the Pac-9 is under pressure.
Pac-9.
So,
As far as underrated coaches, I want to throw in before we move on to the next topic.
By the way, Tony, you told me to behave. Look at you. See, look at you.
Sorry,
Right?
sorry,
You
that
told
was
me to
bad.
watch my mouth, and there
My
you
bad.
go. And there you
Fearless
go.
Fearless leader, back to the pack. Come on. As far as coaches, one more name to throw out that I think is underappreciated and kind of
We have to laugh.
making the wash with all this is Jake Dickert.
Yeah.
Wazoo outperformed their expectations last year, and I was his first year. And he plays hard-nosed defense, which is something that not many other Pac teams do outside of Oregon State, Utah. We'll see what USC can do, Oregon can do, but I think Dickert slept on. If we're going to say coaches, I mean, we throw out all the usual candidates, but the young guys, Dickert, ASU, Dilly, another young name to look out for that I think has a promising future and can maybe do what Colorado is trying to do, which is replace a lot of bad talent with good talent.
True. And thank you to Lomansky. Lomansky's always part of the chats. We're glad to have you. Tonight he learned that I am your muse, Tim. We all need help. That's too funny. And Lomansky, thank you. We always love having you here on the show and in the chats. Thank you.
Go Hawks, Lomansky.
Donator of his well-earned money.
So the coaches under pressure for the Pac-12, I'm thinking, are Chip Kelly, Justin Wilcox. I mean, Wilcox, I see him as under a lot of pressure to make a bowl game. Nobody's asking him to win 9 games or 10 games or even beat USC, UCLA. They just want him to make a bowl game. Dan Lanning, I want to say he's under pressure in a way to, he's not going to get fired or anything. Don't get me wrong. That's not going to happen. But he is under a lot of pressure to have a really good year in 2023. Washington's Kalen DeBoer, I see under pressure at number 4.
Huh? Wait, no. What?
I don't think so. I don't agree with that. I agree with Chip Kelly.
I will agree with what you said there about Lanning. I agree. He's not in danger of losing his job. He's in danger of losing his swag.
Well, I'm not saying under like job or anything. Not like for job or anything, but pressure to have a really awesome year in 2023. Like say, make it to the Pac-12 title game, for example.
Yeah. Well, I get you.
Yeah, that's what I meant for like pressure for this year. Those are my top 4 for now. Lincoln Riley, I would say 5. I think he'll be fine. He's gonna do all right. I mean, let's be honest. I think Lincoln Riley's gonna get USC the Pac-12 title for 20.
You know what? But since we're talking, you know who's under pressure? If Alex Grinch is under pressure. So if you want to do that seed is hot as a pistol. I think he's going to do fine. But if we want to talk about anybody in the whole Pac-12 about their position within the Pac, there's a million patient fans. They're hearing a lot of the national narrative instead of just looking at the whole pieces. And we're going to see this is his opportunity to shut up a lot of critics. But I would say he's under a lot of pressure.
The Grinch,
you're right. Brilliant point, Tim.
The Grinch is under a lot of pressure, and he better have
a shine. Who knows?
So we can move on if you want, but since Ben and Jackson both brought him up on the Chip Kelly point, from like a job perspective, pressure wise, our schedule is so soft that I don't see the world in which he does poorly enough to actually warrant getting fired at UCLA, because I think it would take going like 6 and 6.
He won't be fired. I don't see him getting fired. I just think they'll make like this big announcement of Chip Kelly's going to return for 2024, and then he's on the hot seat for 2024.
Chris, what about this scenario, Chris? What about 8-4 with a blowout loss to USC?
Then we wait to go to the Big Ten. We lose all of our defensive line that is already very thin. So our starters are fine, but we're very, very thin, and a lot of them leave. So I'm already on the idea that our first year in the Big Ten is going to be horrible, and it would be bad no matter what conference we were in. But it's going to be even worse on those lines. And it's going to be because unless we do things in the transfer portal, but like big defensive tackles that are really good don't really go on trees. And unless you can go get Bear Alexander somehow, a lot of teams don't really get people out of the portal with that position. So I think that we're going to struggle first year of the Big Ten regardless. I would love to be wrong, but I think that that's a problem, and I think that's where you see a change happen if it happens. But if we go 8-4 with a blowout to SC or something, he doesn't lose his job over that, but he very well could the next year.
I mean, the thing you might do to pull the Band-Aid off because you're saying that it's pretty likely to have a poor season, right? Maybe just rip the Band-Aid off and grab one of those guys that with UCLA ties that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, you're gonna bring that up in front of Connor. That's really rude of you.
I'm just saying because things change.
Did I miss something?
No, Connor, nothing at all. That's why I didn't say the names. So, just saying. Talk about a run game.
No, but we're not the kind of school administratively from the chancellor down, and that's actually where the problems at UCLA lie, and with respect to like ever being great at football, is the administration is totally fine being a 8-win, 6-win, 7-win, 9-win team
you were
from
getting
year to
all
year.
the Trojan punchlines, by the way. Just so you know, you are feeding the Trojan.
It's true of the administration. It's not true of like the kids playing or the fans watching, but it's true from.
Are you telling me that Pac-12 leadership would be slow to respond proactively to athletic issues?
Gene Block was one of the primary supporters of our board, Larry Scott, wasn't he?
Never. Top of the line. We're the first to act. Pac-12. We get stuff
cutting edge of action.
Cutting edge. SMU, SDSU, bring it on. We're getting Apple 50 mil. Colorado is going to reverse decision. It was 98% chance today. That doesn't mean
what do you guys think though? What if there are some teams they have lined up to bring into the Pac-12?
Notre Dame.
Just not my like Notre Dame or some people just and it's all
so
like
they want Cal State.
Here we're talking this, and it just brings in like Notre Dame and somebody else that's just like
Ohio State defects from the Big Ten.
Ohio State. We're gonna take a flagship from the Big 12.
ACC breaks. Let's like 3 teams shoot over or something.
Clemson, Miami,
that would be so funny.
I was gonna say, Chris.
All right. On that note, guys, we are hitting about our time. Jackson and Ben, any final thoughts here?
I just want to say, Chris, to your point about UCLA's schedule. They are going to have a really good year this year in 2023, especially with the non-conference schedule. Coastal Carolina is not going to be as hard as everybody thinks because, they got
surfers.
Well, they got Grayson McCall at quarterback, yes, but the head coach, Tim Beck,
coach is gone.
Not really good, I don't think.
My final thing is I want to leave you guys with a question. Were you disrespected not getting having a Pac-12 team projected to make the college football playoffs by hardly anyone in the
by whom?
By anyone. I don't know. I didn't see projected by like any of the magazines, the preseason magazines like Lindy's or Phil Steele or anything like that.
I don't feel disrespected. It's, again, you're trying to figure out who's going to be in the playoffs at this point of the season. It's kind of silly to begin with, but if the Pac-12 doesn't get one of those top 4 schools in, it's just because the rest of the Pac beat them up.
Top 5.
That's right. Well, I was counting you at 4, Connor.
Oh, thank you. Oregon's not in this conversation.
Yeah. We booted the Ducks out. Yeah.
Connor, I believe Oregon
Ducks are off to the Mountain West.
Yeah, Connor, I believe Oregon State's going to have another fantastic year this year.
Well, hey, if we're talking schedule, USC and Oregon State are the ones to pick based off of schedule and who should get there.
But I do, unfortunately, think Washington State will give you guys a little bit of trouble.
They always do.
Yeah, because they're going to be thinking about Utah on Friday night coming to your backyard.
That's our little brother, Wazoo.
Yeah.
You can never count them out.
Well, my last question I kind of just want to go over was what's the plan for the Pac-12, or as everybody's calling them, the Pac-9, I guess? Yeah, the Pac-9.
I don't know. They've got a lot of teams that want to join. Maybe they'll let some in.
Shout out, Troy.
Maybe they should get Boise State.
I'll Venmo you the money.
Boise State would be a great addition, honestly. Because, they've been getting the shaft for years. from the Power 5. And this year, I mean, who knows?
Hey,
Maybe
they're going
Boise-
to have a chance to prove it. They got Washington week 1. Back to ball talk. Boise's good, but the best of the Mountain West, we destroyed Fresno and Boise last year. Fresno was
Although didn't Washington lose to the Grizz?
They did. They did lose to Montana,
They lost to Montana.
which cannot be forgiven.
That was the start off 2021, I believe.
It was. Jackson and Ben, any final thoughts here as we get ready to wrap up?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Great inauguration for this year's talk, sports talk. It was talking with you guys. Enjoyed it.
Glad to have you anytime.
Thank you guys for having me on tonight. It's been an honor.
The studio looks great, Jackson.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, studio looks good in there, Jackson. Spiffy, I like it.
My dad's been helping me with it. You know, he's the mastermind behind all this, honestly.
That takes some elbow grease right there, gluing those panels to the wall.
Yeah, he did so much for this. I mean, I'm just like amazed. I'm just like,
it looks amazing. Good job, Jackson. Tell your daddy did a good job.
I will, man.
Thanks for calling in.
I'll let
Hey,
him
tell
know.
your friends.
Oh, wait, real quick.
Elite football out here.
Jackson, I got to give you props for the Rocket City Trash Pandas hat. I have one
Oh,
also.
thank you.
Oh, wow. What a reach there.
Yeah, we can talk more about it on Twitter and Instagram and friends and YouTube, although we can't do much talking.
Go ahead
I
and
didn't
plug
even
your stuff,
notice that.
Jackson.
I'm
You
on my
already started.
laptop, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got this at a Trash Pandas game last year in May 2022. It was
Nice.
pretty cool.
Everybody
My
follow
first
Jackson on Twitter and YouTube as well. Another young gun like Jeffrey, up and coming, trying to make a presence felt. Alabama fan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Right.
Roll
Right
Tide.
here. Alabama logo.
Yeah, you just picked one of them up and coming, grinded out programs that could maybe surprise some people.
Oh, hey, I had a question. Are you guys going to be doing the after sports the football after dark this year?
I'm not
don't know
sure.
yet.
I'm
I
not
don't
in
know
charge of
about
it.
Haven't heard anything yet.
My schedule for sure. I'd love to do it for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to have a transition year as the LA guys leave the conference. So perhaps maybe more of Larry and Sergeant Pickles, myself, Utah, Washington, Oregon State representing. Maybe we can
I
get
like
Ryan
it.
Winter in here.
Anytime. We'd love to have Ryan anytime.
It's the longest goodbye, Tony. All right, guys.
I know.
Sorry, guys.
It's like 3 a.m. on the East Coast. No, I'm
It's
kidding.
2 hours. What we can say, you know,
I just
2 hours.
teased it. We got it. Hey,
The future
Thank
will
you,
get
Jackson.
better.
thanks, Jackson. Fight on. We'll
Bye,
see you
Jackson.
soon.
Thanks, Ben.
Ben, thank you. All
Really
right,
quickly,
gang.
right hand lead had a really good, just popped up real quick. So
What'd you say?
that is a good point, but there's two sides. As USC knows, there's two sides to football. So I do like a lot with it going on the offense. Chris, any thoughts?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. The best QB possibly in the Big Ten, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what he is. We'll see what he is.
Maybe you're.
I think the building up the trenches point though. I disagree. I think our starters and both offensive and defensive line this year are very, very good, but I think we have a lack of depth, and I think that if you have injuries on either side of the ball on the offensive line or defensive line, then it becomes a problem. And that was true last year, but we stayed remarkably healthy on the offensive line. I do think, though, that he's done, especially on offense, at like the skill positions. The front seven on defense is good. The line on offense is good if it stays healthy. The running back room, quarterback room, and receiver room is as deep as it has ever been since I have been a fan of UCLA.
Wow.
All right.
You can thank USC for part of that.
Yeah, thank you for Kyle Ford. Thank you, Cal, for Michael Sturdivant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ball State, for Carson Steele.
Mhm.
Thank you, Oregon, for Dante Moore. Thank you, whatever school Colin Schley came from. The rest of them, I think we recruited, but after
And
that.
thank you, Washington, for
Well, not the offensive line. There's 3 transfers on the
Those
offensive line
twin
also.
brothers on defense. Thank you to Houston. Or wherever they
Right.
came
Yeah.
from.
We are surviving every year on the transfer portal.
And Latu from Washington.
From Washington, medical retirement.
That's a different story, but yeah.
Cal linebacker, Old Dominion left tackle, Purdue guard, and I forget where the other offensive lineman came from off the top of my head.
It's weird because Chip does that a lot, but you know, when you hear about the transfer portal, all we're hearing about is USC and Colorado. But in reality, Chip's been making a living off of pulling guys from all over the country. So,
which is so. I mean, who wants to live in LA? What what are we doing?
you know, as the
Transfer to
rest of,
UCLA. What can you do there? You can get a giant apartment like Bear Alexander has.
that's a sweet apartment, man. And if I was a young 18-year-old, 19-year-old, I sure as hell would be signing on too for that apartment. Woo!
No, you're not wrong.
All right. Final thoughts here, guys. Farewell to Ralphie. Let's start with our amazing guest host tonight, who has just been absolutely fantastic. We can't thank him enough. Connor, it was great to have you. Thank you. You were a rock star tonight. We're glad to have you.
Connor, just so you know, ask Chris later off the air. The first person I thought of, man, was you. When I heard this news, I'm like, oh man, I hope he's taking this news good.
Oh, to end on that, I mean, I think each school needs to start thinking about themselves. And I've been the biggest back-to-back guy in regionality, and this is just another stab. But hey, I mean, nonetheless, we have great football this year, and we've turned our program around. We're in a position to where, you know, Big 12 offer looks hopeful. If the Pac can't figure this thing out and get across the finish line. But thanks for having me. You know, I'll always be here. I'll be here during the season. Final note on football. I'm bullish about the Beavs and about DJU, the offensive line. So defense, I know if we have a little bit more time, Tim always likes to point out the DBs. I know I've been long-winded, chat. But DBs, I did some research. We're returning 8 guys with significant playing time. Our safety group is healthy. It's just going to be replacing the guys on the outside, which is a tall task. But I think you make up for that with the edge rushers. More pressure on the quarterback, less talent at DB could be a net neutral. So our defense should still be strong. I like Beavs and Trojans in Vegas.
You left out Spade.
I like it. Thank you. Thank you, Connor.
Mascarena's former 4-star is the guy to look out to replace Omar Spades.
Okay.
Chris, any final thoughts? End of the Buffs.
Regardless of what happens to the Pac-12,
And farewell, Colorado.
We hardly knew you.
Go try to win more in a worse conference.
On that note, regardless of what happens in the conference going forward, I really am I think this is the most excited for to see what happens in the conference that I've been in a long time.
Yes,
not
live in the present.
Not necessarily the most excited that I've been for UCLA, although I think because of our schedule, in the same way that Connor has hope, right? I think that most people have Oregon State 5 and UCLA 6. But I think because of our schedules, one of us will end up being higher than that by the time the end of the year happens, at least one of us, just off schedule alone. But setting that aside and UCLA aside, just from a conference perspective, I think this is the most exciting the conference has been in a really, really long time. And I'm going to keep beating that drum because it's going to be a really, really fun final year for the conference in the last year that UCLA and USC are a part of it.
And real quick, back to UCLA, your early prediction on July 26th, Beavs hosting UCLA. We're going to send them off to the Midwest upset, or do you think UCLA comes in and gets the probably slight underdog upset win?
Before he answers, are you going to pipe noise in like you did against USC or not? No piping noise in.
No, we don't need to. The other side of the stadium.
I'm just checking.
No, they had to make room for the stadium for the bleachers, so they took the giant
the speakers
60-inch
out.
speakers, 60-foot Yeah, Megalodon speakers out.
All right.
That's fair.
Chris, give me a
Maybe we
prediction
both put
that we gotta
UCLA's
roll.
band up in the rafters.
Yeah, no, real quick prediction wise, like I have to say that we probably lose. It's one of the 3 games that we will be an underdog in. And I think but I think that's the most likely of the 3 for us to win. And I think it's one of the games that UCLA should have circled in terms of like what makes the difference between an okay season and a good to great season is if we're able to pull that game off.
Yeah. And hey, I hope we'll be cordial to UCLA as they're betraying us, and we can be nicer than we were to the USC fans. You pose less of a threat.
Do you play the Buffs?
But on the field, UCLA, I think, will be just as good as the USC performance last year.
Do you guys play the Buffs this year? Where's it at?
We do, at Colorado. Farewell tour, which is a sneaky trap game because we have to go back-to-back on the road, Arizona and Colorado. So I don't know. We'll already be tired, but then you factor in the elevation. I'm bullish on Colorado. I hate that they're leaving, but I think that they are sneaky good to get into the top half, maybe even of the league.
No, dude, stop. Just stop. No,
all right.
No.
Tim, give your final thoughts here.
My final thoughts are, I'm never going to believe you again when you tell me to behave because you are far worse than I ever planned on being today, Tony. Your Pac-9 comments, I didn't even go there. You were telling me you were worried about my behavior on the show. Come on now. But that's a good question, though. We got to look that up. I
laughed nervously.
I want to see where Colorado is traveling to because I'm sure they're going to get a worse reception. I thought USC was going to get a bad reception. I bet you those Buffs are going to get pretty bad receptions as they go around their farewell tour as well.
Especially because they're bad.
Yeah, no doubt.
They're gonna throw it in the end zone just a few more times. Well, hey, thank you, and thank you to everybody who's been in the chat tonight. For a lot of fans, I know it's a hard night. For a lot of fans, there's a lot of questions. I'll tell you guys just to wrap up here. I think this is a time that if you are a Pac fan, reach out to your school, call your alumni office. It's a time for action. The Pac has we've said from the get-go that this hide from the world PR strategy was bad. We learned today it's catastrophic. So if you're a Pac fan, if you're a Pac administrator, if you're a Pac staff member, whatever, it's time for action. That action is immediately, I think, adding San Diego State and SMU. I don't care what your plan was. The next action is you take the Apple money and you move forward. And finally, finally, I'll be honest. I think it's time you need a change in the leadership of the conference and the executive committee. Stanford should be gone today. Washington State probably needs to move on. And quite honestly, I think it may be time for a new commissioner because this was a failure. So, I mean, if the conference can keep this together, that's fine. You just lost your worst team. But it's time for leadership, and that leadership needs to start with Cal. That leadership needs to be from Arizona State. That leadership needs to be from Utah. It needs to be from Oregon State. Washington needs to be from all over the conference. That leadership needs action. So on that, we wish the Buffs well. We love our Buff friends. We love our Colorado alums. We love our Colorado friends. We wish you well. But it's time for the Pac to take action because they screwed up in letting you go. So with that,
we say Paction?
It's time for some Paction. I like that, Cotter. All right, with that, guys, it's time for some Paction. Everybody fight on. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week.
Go East.